But yeah, what is happening to us? For some time, you have explained well to the Dominican people, and you have been on this issue from the time from the inception, from its inception, when the U.S. government gave our government here some benchmarks. They had to meet certain measures with respect to the CBI, and subsequently, because they had not met it within the stipulated time, then some sort of measure came about, and it seemed to me that they are still non-compliant, and that is why we are still continuing to suffer from it. And when the proclamation was read, Dominicans suffer with respect to not getting visas at the time. Now we are hearing Dominican Antigua, only Dominican Antigua in the Caribbean so far. I haven't read anybody's, and you'll explain that to us. Right now we're in that they are only going to be allowed, these two countries are going to be allowed to get 3 months visa with a one entry, which means that if you happen to be successful to get a visa from the U.S. Embassy, you'll get a 3 months visa, but it's a one entry, which means if you have to go back again, you'll have to reapply. Doc, can you?
Yeah, but you should also add it gets worse. You also have the bond that is attached to it.
You're going
anywhere
to
from 5,000 to
you are going to explain. I'm going to leave it for you to explain.
US dollars.
I'm saying to you, what do you make of that, Doc? Moving from one point where we've been penalized. I'm talking about the citizenry. Generally, I call it a sort of penal measure on us, because the government side, they can travel under the Geneva Convention as diplomats. They can go anywhere they want. They will get that kind of accommodation. What about the ordinary citizen? What does that spell for the ordinary citizen of Dominica?
Look, when you thought it could not get worse, it has just gotten worse. I mean, a freeze or pause on visa applications is one thing. But now to move beyond it and say, well, we're no longer going to give Dominica and Antigua 10-year visitor visas and multiple entry. You're going to get, as you said, 3 months visas, single entry. It means every time, if you're a businessman, you have to travel several times to the US. Each time you want to travel, you have to go to Barbados. That has its huge costs already, because remember, to get to Barbados, a return ticket from Dominica normally is close to $1,000, a return visit, a return trip. So that's $1,000, let's just say, because you have accommodation. So let's just say, for argument's sake, just to go is $1,000. Then you have to come up with between $5,000 and $15,000 for the bond, and you have to do that multiple times. That's a huge burden. But what is striking in all of this? And when I heard this, I could not believe. I had to listen and read the document again a second time and a third time to really see that's what they were saying. I thought that only applied to visitor visas. It applies to student visas as well. So imagine you're a student going to study in the United States, and you're only given a 3-month visa to go to study. It applies to F1 visas. It also applies to J visas. The J visas now, these are very interesting, because I was a recipient of a J visa when I went to study in the United States, because I was given a scholarship and I had to work with the school. Since I was allowed to teach, I had to get a J visa, because that allows you as a student to work. If you have an F visa, you're restricted. You normally cannot work with an F visa unless it's within the school itself. But a J visa allows you to take on added employment. That too is subject to the 3 months, and I don't know how that's going to work. So effectively, we can say that students and those who are hoping to get J1 research visas and so on, postdoctoral studies and all of that, we can say definitively that they're going to have a problem. Because with a 3-month visa, I don't know that the school is even going to allow you to enter. Because it means if you go in with a 3-month visa to school, then you have to come out, reapply, go back for the second term. That's going to be extremely costly for the students, hugely inconvenient. And the question that everyone is asking is why. Why it is that it's only Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda that has been subject to those restrictions. And these are draconian. These are, in other words, if you do not have a visa, you can kiss the United States goodbye, go to the United States, because I think it's just going to be just completely really too costly one. And for many people, coming up with over $40,000 to just set aside just to go to the United States might be an issue. You have restrictions as to which cities you can go to, you can enter and exit. So if, for example, you're going to Alaska, you're forced to go to either New York or you can't even go to Miami. It's not even on the list, I don't think. New York, Chicago, and a few other places. So you have to go all the way out of your way, added cost. So it's just a huge mess, and Dominica is at the center of this. And the question is why? And I believe that this is tied very much to our government, and that's why tonight we describe our program tonight as the deterioration in the governance levels in Dominica, because that's what we have. We have a government who is completely uncaring. And I say uncaring because with all of these concerns that we have, our prime minister had a chance to meet with the Marco Rubio, the foreign secretary for the United States, in St. Kitts last week. And when he was asked, he said, well, I don't normally raise issues concerning Dominica. I'm like, this is a man that has been paid to be the prime minister of this country. And his response to a question as to whether or not he had raised concerns, you think that these are major concerns to the Dominican public. Sick people not being able to go to the United States, students not being able to travel to the United States, the fact that green cards have been suspended, the fact that the whole visa process is now suspended. All of these issues, and you're saying that you have nothing really to plead or to talk on behalf of the Dominican public. I thought that was just that is someone who is completely out of it. Let's just be blunt and say it as it is. The prime minister completely out of it to say that he has nothing really to raise on the behalf of the people when you have those major issues. I mean, you're talking about the United States, where 90% or between 90 and 95% of persons who travel from Dominica travel to the United States. So this is not insignificant. The majority of Dominicans in the diaspora, they live in the United States. Probably 5-10 times the amount of persons who live in England, for example, who live in the United States. So to just dismiss that, just like that, I found that was very disturbing. And so I think what it shows is someone who is really tired and who really needs to exit the scene, and make way for persons who have the interests of Dominica at heart. I believe the prime minister is tired. He's run his course after 20 years, the pressures of running this country, the dismal failure, the fact that he's destroyed the agriculture sector, he's destroyed the manufacturing sector, the fact that we've lost jobs in the thousands, the fact that thousands of our young people have been forced to go overseas for work and so on. I believe all that is having its toll on the prime minister. And more recently, the issues of the CBI, the pressures, the fact that he's given our passports to crooks and criminals. We are now told that, Iranian agents and Hezbollah, all of these persons having the Dominican passports and so all of those pressures, I believe, it's clear, have been brought to bear on the shoulders of this prime minister, and he's incapable, I believe, of handling the dictates of the office. And I think it's time that he realizes that, and I believe he's realized it, and that's the reason why he had out of his own free will had announced that he was going to make way in April of 2025. And unfortunately, he changed his mind. But I think he would have done Dominica a great service if he had decided to do as he had promised and demit office in last year. Would have been a lot better, I believe, now for it. So let me just play this particular piece of information. It's not very long. It's just about 3 minutes.
No problem.
And let's listen to it, because I think it's very instructive, I believe, in terms of what we are experiencing, and it's unique. And when after we're through, we can discuss the why of it. Why is it that Dominica and Antigua, the only two countries in all of the Caribbean islands who have been faced with these added measures? That is something that we absolutely have to ask ourselves. So let's listen. All right.
Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda can no longer obtain 10-year U.S. visitor visas. Updated State Department reciprocity schedules for both countries now show B1 or B2 visas capped at 3 months and a single entry, down from 120 months with unlimited entries. St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and Grenada are unaffected. Their reciprocity schedules still show the old terms. The downgrade extends beyond tourist and business travel. Student visas, F1 and F-, exchange visitor visas, J1 and J2, intra-company transfers, L1 and L2, and religious worker visas, R1 and R2, all show the same restrictions for both countries. Diplomatic categories escaped. A1, A2, and G1 through G4 visas remain at 60-month validity with multiple entries. Neither country holds an E1 or E2 treaty with the United States. Shorter validity is not the only new friction. The U.S. Embassy in Bridgetown, which handles visa applications for all Eastern Caribbean states, now requires that approved B1 or B2 applicants from both countries post a bond of up to $15,000 US. Consular officers set the amount at the interview. For someone who once held a decade-long visa and paid a single application fee, the arithmetic has changed entirely. Every trip means a new application, a new bond, and another appearance in Barbados. No official State Department statement links the reciprocity change to President Trump's December 2025 proclamation, which imposed partial entry restrictions on 20 countries. Reciprocity is supposed to reflect how foreign governments treat American travelers, not Washington's policy concerns about those governments. But the timing makes that distinction hard to maintain. Antigua secured a partial reprieve before year-end. Washington agreed to honor visas issued before December 31st, 2025. Dominica has no such arrangement and has faced the full scope of restrictions since January 1st. On January 21st, 2026, the Trump administration froze immigrant visa processing for 75 countries on public charge grounds. All 5 Caribbean citizenship by investment nations were on that list. None of this arrived without warning. A State Department memo in June 2025 placed 4 Caribbean CBI jurisdictions on a draft travel ban list, giving them 60 days to address concerns about passport vetting and residency requirements. Caribbean prime ministers fought back publicly, defending their due diligence standards while pledging reforms. St. Kitts responded with mandatory residency requirements for CBI applicants. Antigua signaled it was considering extending its physical presence requirement from 30 to 90 days over 5 years. A 180-day review cycle written into the December proclamation allows restrictions to be modified or lifted if affected countries improve screening and information sharing. No rollback has materialized for either country. Neither the government of Antigua and Barbuda nor the government of Dominica had issued a public response to the reciprocity change